What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a very special episode of Track Talkers in the house. We had to bring him in down from Bakersfield, California, right?
Yes,
right,
sir.
John?
Yep.
Bakersfield, California. We have the man, the myth, the legend, Jon Majors from Stan Benson Racing. Dude, I just want to start out the show for anybody who doesn't really know about Stan Benson Racing. What is Stan Benson Racing? How did it kind of get started? Give me just the lowdown, the quick scoop about where did we get started and what it is.
Okay. So when we first started, Kean was racing. I had a friend of mine, Nick McBride, that he ended up starting Flow Vision, a goggle company.
Okay. Yep.
And so Kean had started running his goggles, and it was a really cool situation where Nick was trying to get more trackside presence, and so
Flow Vision.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they had seen that we were trackside quite a bit racing.
Yeah.
And so he's like, hey, would you mind running a canopy? We'll set you up with a table.
For real?
Yeah, true story.
Okay.
And so I was like, yeah, sure. And when he first started, he had two colorways. And from there, I mean, now, like, that's one of the things that Flow Vision's kind of known for is the massive amounts of colorways that they have. Mm-hmm. It's more of a, solid economical goggle that, consumers can use. And so from there, we started running the goggles trackside for him. We'd offer sales and support and things like that. And then from there, we ended up getting introduced to the guys over at Renegade Race Fuel, and we started peddling race fuel and tires, and it got to a point where we had a trackside trailer that we would use, and it got a little too big for what we were doing just trackside. And so that's when we actually opened the shop, was in 2020. Yep. And from there, it's, snowballed into parts and sales and service and the race team and all of that. So,
well, that's kind of like the big thing too, is it had a huge snowball effect to go into the race team. So it kind of, I guess it really started with your wife's dad. Yeah. Right?
Yep.
So take us through kind of like, how did you and your wife were high school sweethearts?
Yeah, so I actually went to...
Bro, let's go!
I went to school with her brother, and so Macy was a couple years older than I was.
Yeah.
And so I was around quite a bit, and we ended up, talking, and that's kind of where it started from there. And so Stan and Sherry had done a lot for us.
Hold on, though. Let's get the full story here for the folks. I didn't realize
we were going to be getting into the relationship.
We're going to get into the full story. Hold on.
All right.
So Macy told me you were friends with her brother. It's kind of how it all started, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you pounced on your bro's sister, right?
Yeah.
So that's essentially how this kind of got started.
Yeah, I thought you were supposed to make me look good.
That is looking good. That's a move right there.
It's a move. I don't know if it's the right move.
It's the perfect move. I mean, you can't stop love. You know what I mean?
Fair enough.
Okay, so your high school sweethearts with Macy. Now keep going.
So from there, Stan and Sherry, they really kind of helped us get going. And
who's Stan and Sherry?
So Stan Benson and then Sherry Benson.
Okay.
That's my wife's father and mother.
Yep. Okay.
So from there, they helped us get started and really kind of paved the way for us early on in life. Learning how to be adults and totally.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So from there, Stan had passed away unexpectedly in 2016, and he was a racer. He did circle track cars. And so from there, when we had kind of started the shop, it was an obvious choice for us on what we wanted to name it. And, it's really cool. It's a family deal. Kean in the summers, he works in the shop with the boys. Yeah. Learning how to, do basic things, whether it's ordering parts or
whatever.
Yeah, right? Whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever it is. I love you so much, bro. I love how much of the story you're skipping over, right? Because so Macy kind of told me, and I was talking to Kean too, that so you were mechanicking for Stan Benson, and that's how kind of you guys got close in the hobby stock class while he was racing essentially like circle track racing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So like you kind of started out as a mechanic, but you also rode a little bit too, right?
Yeah.
So that's how, like, talk to us. Cause really, realistically, the whole Stan Benson thing got started kind of because Kian wanted to race, right?
Yeah.
And that would come from you and obviously Stan. I mean, that seems like where this whole thing kind of culminated from. Like, in my eyes, tell me if I'm wrong, it looks like you just had a passion with your son and that kind of came and just evolved into all this, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's been fun because it gives us an opportunity to do something that, you know, like I'm passionate about racing. I love it, whether it's dirt bikes or cars, F1, whatever it may be. I just enjoy the everything that goes into it. The work, the effort, the commitment to a long-term goal. And that's one of the nice things about moto is when you're doing these things daily, repetitive, that becomes kind of monotonous, and being able to understand that you may not see the results today or even, you know, tomorrow, and being focused on a goal that you're going to have, you know, 2-3 years down the line. I think that resonates in life in general. And so especially in this day and age when things are too easy, there's so much instant gratification.
Dude, you're preaching to the choir. Everybody needs to watch this episode, dude. I mean, how many kids nowadays just think like, oh, because it's on Instagram or the internet, it's just supposed to come out of nowhere. You know what I mean? And it's like, it takes a lot of hard work, and your story too is just a testament of that. Like, look at how long and how far this goes back to get to the spot that you are right now. Next thing I kind of want to touch on is, and not a lot of people know this, but Jon, there's a reason I got you on the podcast. You know what I mean? Like, and that's because you're one of the best dudes in this sport, period. And like what you're doing it for and like the reasons that you're doing it for are truly unbelievable. And that's why I love having you as a sponsor of the show too. You know what I mean? But let everybody know, like, why do you do this, bro? Why even? Because you could have just ended this with Kian, right? You could have had a race team with Kian. You could have got him some sick sponsors like you did with Flow Vision, you know, and Renegade Fuel. And you could have just had this sick team for your son.
Yeah.
Why start a shop? Why start a race team? Why even do any of this?
So the shop we kind of started as something that I guess when we started it originally, it was just something where, you know, it was capitalizing on opportunities, things that came about where, you know, it was like, yeah, we can do that. And then as things kind of grew, it turned more into something that I'd like to be able to eventually turn over to Kian. Something that he's excited about. It's an industry and potentially a livelihood that in a sport that he enjoys. And so for the shop, that's really what we're kind of doing right now is we're making moves that are, you know, hopefully going to benefit him down the road, have him learn all the aspects of the business. And if it's something he's interested in, then, you know, I'd love for him to be able to kind of carry that legacy on with maybe his kids down the road.
Yeah.
For the team aspect, I think one of the biggest challenges that I saw is and it may not necessarily be that way anymore. It's evolved, but typically in this sport, you've got kind of a 1% at the top that is getting the majority of the support.
Freaking A, dude.
And so I would see so many kids when we were racing that are putting in the work that they just need an opportunity. And in this sport, so much of it is confidence. And when you're going against a kid that you may outwork, you know, every day of the week, and you may have more heart then or more talent. But when they roll up in the factory rig and they've got a mechanic walking to them with the line, it's intimidating. And
to say the least, bro, you're welcome to my entire amateur career, right?
Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
So that's really the biggest reason why we started the team to begin with, was we were able to position ourselves to where we could create a couple of opportunities for kids that we really liked. And we felt like, man, like if they just had a little something extra, then it might inspire some confidence. And so like our first year, we had Parker Ross, we had Preston White, Brandon Sanchez, Alvin Hillen, and it's a really good team. It was great to see Parker, his growth throughout that year, where he was one of those kids that everybody knew and he was fast. And so when we were able to kind of give him a little bit more support and give him a mechanic and have him have that factory presence, you could see a little bit of swagger develop with Parker, and it resonated at that time. I mean, I'll never forget it at Texas at Spring Nationals when it was him and Deegan and Daxton Bennick, and the three of them had gapped the field. I mean, they were
Gone.
1, 2, 3. It was good because it showed him like it's one thing to believe it, but then like when it comes to fruition, you're like, I've got it.
Yes.
I know I belong.
Absolutely.
And really those moments are kind of why we do this, and it's why we keep doing it. It's almost because it's 1% of the time you have like an
moment
excitement.
that
It's like golf for me. Like golf, I get so frustrated playing golf, but I'll have one drive out of 18 holes and I'm like, yep, that was it.
And that's the hook, line, and sinker.
100%. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's really cool. I want to touch on I want to talk about Parker a little bit more. How did that all, culminate? Like because at that point, Parker was doing good. Like, I remember that. You know what I mean? He was doing decent.
Yeah.
But, like, how did you guys get in touch? What was that like? Did he reach out to you guys? Did you reach out to him? What was that experience like?
Yeah, so Myron Short with 2X, and he owns Bar X, Yamaha.
Yep.
He had actually put us in contact. I know that Myron had given some support to Parker when they were on Suzuki's. And so as we were putting things together.
What year was this?
21.
Okay.
I think.
Yep.
Yeah. And so as we were putting things together, Myron's been very helpful throughout the years of he's been in the sport a long time and he knows a ton of contacts.
Yeah, he does.
So he's been really, really helpful as far as guiding us in the right direction and helping us kind of make smart decisions as we move along. And so he was the one that actually introduced us to Parker, and Kelly and Frank are his parents. And so we were able to kind of touch bases, and it's always a challenge with this too, because there's a lot of talk around the sport as far as like, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And so when we were coming into it, there was several conversations that had to transpire because, so many people promise things and then don't deliver. And so we wanted to make sure that, we had committed to them as far as like, look, this is what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to, be able to try and help. And this is our goal with it. And it's always really been our goal to kind of create those opportunities. And that's what we've kind of carried into the pro side now with, the team partnered with Michael's Reno Power Sports.
Yep.
And, we just want to be able to create those opportunities. We have a love for the sport, and we want to be able to kind of share that love with passionate, like-minded individuals that want to create those opportunities for some of these kids out there.
Can I get an amen, my brother? Can I get an amen? Come on. Okay, let's I want to just move forward just a little bit, but what are the moments you talked about the Parker Ross one? Like, obviously that one's stuck in you.
Yeah,
it
was key. I mean? Yeah.
Like, that was key. What are some of the other moments that you can remember so far, that have really made you be like, wow, this was super worth it?
Yeah, I think, God, that's a tough question.
It's really tough because, dude, in my career too, there's like a few key moments, but almost some of them you wouldn't even really think. Like one of the key moments for my career was getting to know Dustin Pipes.
Yeah.
And being able to be around that tent. And then another one is like meeting Brandon Wilson.
Yeah.
Like those are some of the biggest moments in my career. And people probably don't even know who that is. And it's crazy the things that happen behind the scenes that are the real deal that you don't understand, that like are these little tiny moments that are so insignificant in the grand scheme of, in the moment, they're so small. And then all of a sudden that thing, like, it turns into like this huge story that just flutters out, you know, like, do you remember any of those moments that you're like, oh my gosh, like maybe the first time you talked with Parker, or how about the first time you put Stan Benson on the side of your son's bike? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like moments like that.
Yes. So I think a lot of key to your moment, or to your point about networking and how critical that is, and having a conversation with someone that in the moment may be insignificant, but then it turns into something. I mean, Pirelli is an example with our relationship with Pirelli, and being able to be their trackside provider for a few years and help kind of expand their market growth in some of the dealerships and trackside.
Yeah.
That was a pretty big one, I think, for us, that really helped us kind of elevate what we were, and getting us to kind of that next level. And I think if we wouldn't have had that experience, because every situation, like from the outside in, you're like, yeah, I can do that. But then once you get into the kind of the nuts and bolts of it,
right?
That's when you're like, holy shit, like there is a lot here that I didn't think about. And so for us to have that experience with doing the trackside services and going round after round for, 31 rounds a year, doing trackside service, that really kind of helped us get to a point where we had kind of the nuts and bolts down for the team.
Yeah.
And then that expanded our ability to, be able to provide opportunity. It helped our namesake and kind of getting that out there and meeting riders and teams and various people in the industry. I think another situation was being able to meet ETS, Race Fuels, and getting exposed to Kyle Moose and the team over there.
Yep.
And that was one of those situations where we had kind of had an unfortunate recall with the fuel provider that we were supplying before.
Yeah.
And at that point, ETS was kind of making a push in the US, and it was just right timing. We got
place,
introduced.
right time,
yeah. And so I think moments like that were big. For you had mentioned being able to put Stan Benson Racing on the side of Kean's bikes. That had taken place during when he was on 65s. We were on Huskies at that point. And I know that was kind of a big deal. And it was actually Kean's idea. He was the one that wanted to do it. So once we did it, it was pretty cool to be able to do, especially
pretty cool.
It was.
Hey, like John, like think about that moment though. You know what I mean? Like that was putting that graphic on the side of his bike.
Yeah.
It wasn't everything, obviously, because it's you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that is you. If it wasn't for you, none of this would have happened, right? But like think about the significance of that moment and Kean being like, hey, why did Kean want to put it on the side of his bike?
I think that the relationship that he had with his grandfather and him, because Stan's very he's very old school.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of emotions are coming out. And so when you have those kind of moments, like for him to go trackside and to watch Kean ride, and then we found out after his passing that there were people that he was talking to about trying to support Kean and things like that were really cool that nobody even knew that he was doing in the background that were really, it resonated. And so for Kean to want to do it and
how old was Kean
I think
when he wanted to do that?
Like he was 9.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it was really, really cool for him to decide that like, this is what I want to do. And so to your point of skipping over things early on, I think that was kind of a big moment, and that's really what I think led for the namesake to be the business. So
how was that moment for like Macy? Was she there that day, or like how did that? I mean, that must have been huge for her, right?
Yeah, I think so, and it's also nice too because Sherry works in the shop as well, and she runs the day-to-day in there, and it's awesome I think for her to kind of see what this has become.
Yeah.
And not to say that, we're the greatest thing out there, but you know, from it coming to nothing.
I'll say you're the greatest thing out there.
for it to come from nothing and to be what it is now, and hopefully, you know, what it turns into be, it's really cool for her to be a part of it. And you know, I just hope that we're kind of doing right by it, and that she can, you know, look back on this and smile and say, yeah, that he would have kind of enjoyed it. But like Sherry, she hadn't worked in the industry before either.
Yeah.
And, you know, she was a little bit overwhelmed early on.
Yeah,
with trying to learn parts and everything. And but one of the things that she does really, really well is she's passionate about the story. She's passionate about people.
Yeah. And
that's really what's helped. I mean, the customer service that she offers to our customers is unbelievable because she just cares. I mean, not to brag, but we had a customer that was coming through. I think they were coming out of Nevada.
Please brag.
And they were going to an NGP race, and they needed to fill. They needed parts. They got a late start on the day. They came by our shop at midnight, and Sherry met them down there.
No way.
True story. She met them down there at midnight, got them the parts that they had ordered, and then they had their RV. And so
I don't know if we should be putting this on the podcast, my guy. We're going to have people call. Hey, right here at the bottom, you see the Stan Benson number. They'll answer at midnight, baby.
It's just that level of, you know, just not thinking about, you know, the cost or, you know, what's going on, but just being passionate about the sport. That's really what's kind of, you know, put us here. And so it's cool that we're able to share that with family.
Well, let's talk about the passion for the sport, because this is why I got involved with you. I actually started training your son, Kian, and then it just turned into a sponsorship on the show. But one of the things that not very many people know is that that's not your full-time job, right?
No.
That's what I mean. So like this for you is something that you truly have passion about, right? It's like, we know the shop is going to make money, but if we break even, that's kind of like the goal. If the race team breaks even, most of the time you're going to be losing money. Okay. Yeah. You just love it so much and you want to support everybody so much, right?
Yeah.
That you're doing it. Like, what's your other job? How do you make this all work?
Yeah, so I actually run the operations team for a company called Unwired Broadband, based out of Fresno.
So we got the race shop, we got Unwired Broadband, and we got the race team.
Yeah.
Okay, so fill us in on how this all works.
Well, I'm fortunate enough to work for an organization that allows me the opportunity to do things like this, and it's really, as long as things are going well and, you know, we're hitting on what we need to do, then they're pretty open as far as my ability to, you know, do some of these things. And so it's important. It's the same thing with, you know, internet is we've got customers. It's become a utility where, you know, it's no longer a want, it's a need.
Yeah, totally.
Everybody relies on it. And so it's really cool to be able to be a part of an organization that, you know, puts our customers first, that wants to make sure that, you know, the employees are happy and the customers are taken care of. And so that's been a lot of fun. I joined them in 2017.
Yeah.
And that's been great, and they allow me the ability to be able to do the whole SBR thing.
Okay, so we're talking, we do Unwired, we run the shop, and we run the race team.
Well, I don't run the race team.
I know you don't run the race team, but you're a big part of the race team.
Yeah. So Mike and I are partnered in the MRP SBR team.
I don't run the race team. I'm just a partner.
Well,
I love it.
I help with what I can, but you know, we've got a great group over there. We've got a ton of mechanics and drivers, and we've got Zach Wiley that's trackside. He's our crew chief. Yeah. He's handling a lot of the day-to-day operations. Mike Keller is a GM over at Michaels Reno, and he's the team manager. And then Chris Gill runs marketing for the team as well as Michaels Reno.
Yep.
And so that was one of the things that kind of worked well with Mike and I partnering on the team was, as far as the operations aspect, I was pretty familiar with that.
Yeah.
And we shared a like-minded passion for wanting to create that opportunity for those riders.
Yeah.
And from there, he has a few other resources with the dealership and things like that we were able to kind of put everything together, and so far it's been working well. We're less than a year into this. This is our first year, but we've got an unbelievable group of partners that came on board this year to help us out. And between that and the people that we have in the day-to-day that, take pride in what we do and the riders that we're out there representing, it's really, really been cool.
Yep, absolutely. I love John, that I love that you always skip forward. Just a businessman. I love that. You're always just trying to go into the future, but we're going to rewind once again.
All right.
Let's talk about, because this really started with bringing on some amateur riders, some local kids. Let's start with that. Like, who was your first couple riders? Where were they from? Like, talk about like how that transpired. Was this Kian's idea? Was this your idea? Like, who were the first couple riders and where'd they come from?
Well, so I'll rewind a little bit further. I remember talking about like Stan and Sherry and them getting us started.
Yeah.
I remember when they first like early on, we had a studio apartment that we were renting, and I remember our fridge took a shit, and it was a Thursday night. I had worked, came home, and the fridge went out, and we had no idea what we were gonna do, and so Stan and Sherry gave us their credit card, and we went to Lowe's and got a brand new fridge. And I mean, that was one of the
biggest dubs ever.
Was ridiculous. Yeah. like when you were a kid getting a brand new pair of shoes or the latest shirt or whatever, that was a big thing. No, that was our big adult moment, like being able to go buy a brand new fridge. and so things like that were what really led us to wanting to do this. And so when we started looking at riders, there was a few local riders that we had kind of seen come up that really fit, what we were able to do, because obviously there's a lot of other riders that were recognized in the Bakersfield area that, they were getting support.
Yeah. Oh, we got the Aero helmet down.
You called it.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Just throw it on the ground. Well, we're going to look at it here in a minute.
There it is.
Perfect.
I'm not going to hit it.
No, you're good. Okay, keep going.
So like Brandon Sanchez was one of the early kids that we had talked to.
Yeah.
A lot of heart, a lot of determination. And it was really cool because he had a friend of his that he went to school with named Jaden that was wrenching for him. Yeah. And I was kind of taken back. And one of the things that Brandon had said, like he was all about coming on board and he wanted to make a push for Loretta's. And so we had talked to him and he was like, yeah, but I want to bring my buddy Jaden on as my mechanic. And I'm like, all right. And so talking to this, it was a little bit challenging because, I've like at that time, Hayden Lusk was running our shop and I mean, he's experienced. He worked with Ryder D, worked with Styles Robertson. He'd been in the industry a long time.
Yeah.
And so, it was like, all right, like a 14, 15-year-old kid, like wrenching, like, what are we going to...
Yeah, how's this going to work, bro?
It was...
I don't even know how to give this kid a W-9.
It was unbelievable. He ended up going on independent study to do it. Yeah. And his parents were super supportive. Wow. And he still works for the shop to this day. So... So Brandon was one of our early pickups. Yep. And then Preston White was another kid that was from the Bakersfield area. Yep. And so we picked him up. He had just moved off of Super Mini into big bikes. And and then Alvin Hillen was another one of those kids that really was unbelievably talented. Yeah. Had some support from a few different companies and rode, TMs on 85s. And he was just, I couldn't believe that somebody like that was not supported more, especially when you would look at him compared to other kids that were similar age, and the results and the speed. I was like, man, like I can't believe someone's not helping this kid more. And then finally it was Parker Ross, and so that was the four riders that we had the first year, and then from there, it moved into Michael Durden, who's a NorCal kid.
I thought you had some kids before that, even though.
So we did
like some really OG kids too. You know what I mean?
It was more before. So that was our first like team where we had mechanics and bikes and all of that. Before that, we were. It was more of like a rider support where we had the rig. We would have the rig trackside and we had kids that, they had their own bikes, but we had kind of worked with, like Mika and DT1 and a few of those companies to put some support together for some of these local kids. And so the first kid that we had ever signed was a kid named Steven Clendenin. And he still rides for us to this day. He's on 125s now. And he had bought one of Kian's practice bikes back then, and it was pretty cool to be able to kind of start off helping some kids that like they hadn't been given gear or goggles.
Never
or things
had
like
a
that.
Sponsorship in their life.
Yeah, and it was fun. It was really, really fun. We had a lot of great parents involved. We'd go trackside and camp and barbecue, and the kids enjoyed it, and a ton of the boys are still friends to this day. So it was really cool to kind of get that experience and for these boys to be able to have fun trackside at the end of the day.
Yeah, was that always kind of like your goal was to kind of have a race team in the end? Like as soon as you. I don't want to say as soon as you seen Stan Benson on the side of Kian's bike, but like, was that kind of a goal that you had, or was it kind of like, I don't know, like kind of like what I did where it was like one thing rolled into the next and holy crap, all of a sudden you're here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I do typically like I'll kind of set long-term goals for various things, but usually I try not to focus high level because I don't want to get caught dreaming more than actually doing. And so when
swipe that quote off the freaking podcast. I don't want to get caught dreaming more than I'm doing.
Yeah.
Jon Majors, bro. I'm going to put that on your tombstone, bro. That's a good quote right there.
Well, it's easy. I don't know. For me, it's a challenge because when you're focused on like what you want more than what you're actually doing, then days and weeks and months go by. And so for me, I try my best to like, if I set a goal, it's like, all right, I want to work towards that. But then those incremental steps that end up getting added together to reach that goal, that's really what I try and focus on.
Yeah.
And so as far as a race team, like it's one of those thoughts that was like, yeah, that'd be cool someday. But it was like
it was so far out.
Yeah, there's no way.
Yeah.
And I mean, even if you'd have told me 5 years ago that we'd have a semi and all this other stuff that we've done, I'd have told you were crazy. It was one of those things that like, yeah, no, that'd be cool someday. It's like what you think about when you win the lottery, but I don't actually play.
Funny. Yeah, so, neither do I.
Yeah.
I don't. I do say this though. I play when it's over $1 billion.
Do you?
Yes. When every time it gets over $1 billion, or like to $1 billion, I throw it in the pot. You know what I mean? I throw $20 down. I go to the local thing. I go, yeah, give me some random numbers.
Yeah.
Because whatever I choose ain't gonna win. But if it's over $1 billion, you got to be in there. Or you ain't gonna win.
Yeah.
If it's not over $1 billion, I'm out, dude.
See, it's funny. I won't buy lottery tickets, but like I'll blow money at the casino gambling. Like it's the same thing. I'm just throwing money away.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. So you kind of had the vision, right? But it was kind of like, oh, maybe one day, which is really funny because with Flow Vision, I heard you went to AZ Open in a moto van one year. Mm-hmm. Then the next year you showed up in a semi. Or not the semi, but like the race full on trailer.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. The first year was the moto van, and that was the first year that it was, like Stan Benson Racing. And AZ Open's always been a great race for us.
Yeah.
We love that race. The atmosphere is great. The whites that own ACP are phenomenal people.
Oh, yeah.
And so the first the first event that we ever went to was, you really did your homework.
I know I did. Come on.
So the first race that we did as SBR was AZ Open.
Yep.
And so we had gone and, we had bought custom canopies and we had cornhole and we tried to make it, a fun experience. And that was my first, I didn't realize how much a lot of these events cost to go to. And AZ Open is they keep it cheap, very, very competitive for the vendor.
Yes.
But some of these other ones that we've gone to, I'm like, my God. I don't want to get in trouble, but like to park the semi at Loretta's on the hill, it's $10K.
Yeah. Yep.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's known. I feel like that's pretty known though. But it's unreal.
Yeah.
$10K, bro.
Yeah.
Whoop.
Yeah.
Drop it.
Just to park
That's an easy weekend for motocross people.
Oh my God. So
I love it.
So then AZ Open, we show up, we have, our first event, we were selling Flow Vision, but it was like the first event for SBR. And then I think you're right. I think it was the next year that we debuted the team.
I'm glad I got the timeline
and
right.
we had the semi. Yeah. And so that was when we had Parker, we had Preston, we had Alvin, we had I'm forgetting one. Brandon.
Sorry.
Yeah. My God.
Yep.
And so we had gone and we were still trying to figure things out. I mean, aren't we all? Aren't we all? There was a lot to kind of try and get everything together.
Do you remember any of the shit you were just scrambling to figure out or not really?
Yeah, motors were a big thing.
Yeah.
Trying to make sure that we had plenty of motors and spare parts, like even like having brakes ready, like master cylinder, bled ready to go. Things like that we're just like, oh, okay, here's a master cylinder. Well, I don't have time to bleed this in the middle of a moto. And I remember I felt bad because it was actually, that was the first event that Hayden worked for us.
Yeah.
And I remember like that poor kid, he was pulling his hair out during the event. Like, John, where's this? I'm like, oh, we don't have that. He's like, dude, you gotta get your shit together. So
I mean, you gotta live and learn, right?
Yeah. Well, we learned the hard way for sure.
We all do. We all learn the hard way at some point, right? So pretty much, so you were kind of figuring out, I got to get more parts. I got to get more bikes. I got to get more this. Like, what was the biggest awakening as a team manager the first year to you? I know we talked about motors and stuff like that, but how was like the complaining from the riders and the bitching? And like, there's a lot that goes along with trying to make people happy, especially trying to keep the kids on the track.
Yes, certainly. The operational aspect of the team is it's a lot easier than I think once you get familiar with it. Yeah. There's a lot to it, but if you're not organized, if you don't have a structure, it can become chaotic very, very quick. Yeah. But I think the number one thing that I've learned working with riders is I approached it early on wanting to help a rider and not understanding the fact that when you sign a rider, you're signing a family.
Oh yeah.
And
you're signing the motley crew, baby.
Yes. And we've now there's a ton of families that we've worked with that are awesome. Yeah. But when you've got and not to, paint a parent in a bad light or anything like that, but they're John,
quit it, bruh. Dude, the parents suck. Well, and I'm going to be one of them. I guarantee it, because now you see your baby boy or whatever that you've spent all this money on, and you're like, we've done it this way. Yep. This is it. And now you got this whole team, and they're like supposed to support and help you and help your son. And then you have this vision, and it's hard to get everybody on the same page.
Yes. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's where I was going with it. Was it's not like that the parents suck.
They do.
Some of them do. Don't get me wrong. There's parents that if I never saw them again, I'd be happy. But overall, they've invested a ton of time and energy and effort and money into their kid. Yeah. And so when they're watching a team operation and they see, you know, especially when they've got 4, 5, 6 riders, whatever it may be, and you see like you're focused in on your kid.
Yes.
And so when you see someone walk by and the mechanic is struggling, or, you know, they see that they need something, hey, what are you doing? Like we need something here.
Yeah, exactly.
And so when you're hearing that from, you know, 6 different people, and some people deliver that message very, very well, and then some struggle with the delivery. And
there's so many gems in this podcast. I love it.
So that was I think number one. And now when I'm looking at a rider, I'm also assessing their family.
Yes.
Because it's like, all right, what am I going to get into? What am I going to have to deal with? And so, yeah, I think that's really number one when we're looking at riders is like, how is this family going to operate within the structure? Because there's stuff that we're flexible on, but then there's also stuff that we have to hit. And one of the biggest things I think that a lot of riders don't understand is the social media aspect of everything.
Yeah.
Obviously it's been around for a while. But I think that short of a few successful people at it, a lot of people really don't spend the time to understand it or learn it, myself included.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why I appreciate Digital Kings coming on board with the race team this year. Yeah, is because their capabilities and their structure as far as like
I love that.
they
I
do.
love that sponsor plug. I love it. Digital Kings, shout out. Let's go. Okay,
it's unbelievably complex. But when you're going after a sponsor, whether you're an amateur kid or you're a pro, when you're going after a sponsor, they want metrics, and that's what results are. But if you don't have the results yet, or you're a kid that's grinding,
better be selling it somehow.
100%. And so I think that's another aspect or avenue that the riders out there really need to spend some time to understand and comprehend.
Yeah.
So that way they have something like Dayton Briggs, for example. That he's been so successful at what he's done. And one of my favorite things about him is that the person that you see in his videos is the same person that he is behind the camera.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit. I wanted to bring that up. Dayton Briggs, okay, didn't qualify for the first 2. Had a phenomenal race. And was it Jersey or was it
Foxborough?
Foxborough. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Phenomenal showing in Foxborough. Yeah. But obviously right now, he's been underwhelming for himself. I think in the most light. Kid's fast, but you know, you get hurt. He hurt himself on a triple. He's trying to come back, blah, 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 blah. Either way, the point I want to get to is like, as a team manager, obviously Dayton Briggs has a really great following, you know, like really great following. Where does that balance come in of like, okay, what kind of results do you have to get to match Dayton Briggs as far as if you wanted to be on MRP SBR? You know, like Dayton Briggs isn't qualifying. He'll qualify eventually. Yeah. He did really good in Supercross. He's a good rider, but he has that social media following where if you had a rider that wasn't getting a social media following, but was just putting in results, where would they have to be in comparison just to kind of meet Dayton Briggs in the middle? Sure. In your eyes, this doesn't have to be overall as whatever, just in your eyes as a team part owner, where do they have to be to come up to that level? Just on results, shit social media.
Yeah. There's results wise, there's so much more to it than just the results. At the end of the day, like if you look at the national, you've got kids that were on the bubble, and I say kids, I mean some of them maybe 30, but totally. You've got those kids that are kind of on the bubble of making the moto, being in the top 40 for the day. Yeah. And then you've got, I don't know, we'll call it 45 through 25. Yeah. Those kind of, that bottom 20 of the motos at the outdoor races. they're almost interchangeable as far as results.
100%.
Meaning the kid that finishes 5th in the LCQ and doesn't make it into the moto at Pro Motocross, and then the kid that finishes 30th at the moto, neither one of them move the needle as far as results more than the other.
No, because the kid who got 5th in the LCQ probably is going to go next weekend and barely make it, and then the other kid's going to be out.
Yep.
Pretty much.
And that's where, for me, like Enzo Timmerman this past weekend, kid is unbelievable. And like that first moto going from 28th to 15th, he was right behind Volan catching him. Yeah. Hymas had dropped anchor, and Hymas was just in front of Volan. Yeah. And we're going through the 2 to go. Yeah. And I was like, holy shit, like he's in 15th. He's gonna move into probably 13th. Yeah. By the time this moto's over. Uh-huh. And then, he had the bike issue on that last lap. But his results, like if you look at his results for the weekend, they don't paint the picture.
No.
And so that's where I think more than results for me is the kid. Who is that? Are they putting in the work? Do they have a level of commitment to social media where we can provide them with a schedule so that they can bring that recognition and that brand awareness that ultimately our sponsors are looking for? Yeah. And then are they willing to work towards that next level? Yeah. And so really that's, to be general, that's kind of where we're at. This year we're getting our feet under ourselves. Next year we'll kind of see where we're at. I know that just talking about Supercross, we had the great round with Dayton where, he qualified 3rd. He went straight from the heat race, and then he was, got the whole shot and was leading the main for a while. Like that is great. We need more of that next year. Yeah. In order to kind of move the needle, because for us, really, we had some team goals as far as results, but the results weren't going to kind of move the needle. It was really us being able to take this idea and put it out there to where everybody saw that we were showing up. We had great presence. We were professional. We had the look. And so I think, thus far, I think that's where the team has been really, really successful. For us next year, that's when we're going to start chasing the results. So we're going to build off of, the operational organization that we've had so far, the presence that we've been able to put together into the pit, and then taking that and hopefully landing some riders next year that are going to deliver the results.
Yeah. I really do love that answer. But you also didn't answer. I think you're right though. Like that, I think that's a great direction for the team to go. I really do, because, obviously you guys have an amazing presence in the pits, right? Like the whole rig looks so professional. It's well lit. You guys got the flooring, the bikes are all matching. All the sponsors just look presented so well. The rig wrap looks amazing. I mean, you guys have really done a fantastic job. And from the outside, I mean, I'm not totally outside, but kind of like right in the foot in the door. Yeah. From what you guys are doing, I definitely see where you guys are going, and I see the vision. Amazing. But I do want to hop back a little bit to what we were talking about, and I want to get a definitive answer from you, just because I think this is a really relevant subject for all motocross racers. Mm-hmm. And it was in my career, it was kind of how I survived. Realistically, I wasn't going to be a top 5 guy. I think if I wouldn't have got hurt, I would have pulled some top 10s towards the end of my career, which I really do have a lot of regret from that, just being hurt, but you can't control. Yeah. You can't control that. That's part of riding dirt bikes. But, I did get some really great opportunities because of my social media. So where does that social media mark end? Because there is an end mark. At dirt bikes, you have to get results. Yeah. That's like the part of the deal. You aren't selling, like, dude, I want to get some Alpenstar gear just because of how fucking sick Jet looks. You know what I mean? Like when you watch Jet on the track, he looks so sick and so fast that it makes you want to look like Jet. Right? Yeah. Yes or no?
Yeah, absolutely.
So at some point you have to start doing something good. So if you have a guy that has a great social media presence like Dayton, is around 30th. Who is the equal with just results with a terrible social media? Where are you putting that number? Is it 20? Is it around 20? Is it around 15? Is it around 13, 12?
For me, top 20 scoring points. That's so I guess it's three-tiered. You have the guys that are running around 30th or 40th that they may have the good social media presence. That might equate to somebody that doesn't have the social media following but is running around 20th.
Perfect. That's the answer I was really looking for, right?
Then you've got the guys that are kind of 15th that I would say 15th plus. Those are the guys that it doesn't matter what their social media following is, because at that point, I think if you're consistently in that top 15 and the results are there, then the social media aspect doesn't matter.
I disagree a little bit. I think because I guess it's all just tiers, right? You know what I mean? Like if you're 15th and you have a great social media following versus not social media following, I think it could get you a fill-in, kind of like Dino.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If Dino didn't have the social media following, he's not getting that Honda ride. Do you think so?
I don't know.
At this point in his career, think about Dean Wilson having no social media, no YouTube. Do you think he's getting that HRC ride?
I think if you take out social media and you look at his results, not in the US necessarily, but him running abroad with Honda, in my opinion, I would say that his relationship with Honda is what landed it, not necessarily the social media aspect.
Yeah, but I disagree with you. And
he
tell me if
Aussie
I'm wrong.
Title.
Yes, but think about this too, though, right? His social media presence has what really has sculpted his personality in the sport. You know, and
he's done a great job of transitioning, and he I think I don't want to speak for Dean, but I think maybe with some of the injuries that he experienced early on, he kind of figured out like, okay, this isn't going to last forever, and I'm not, invincible, and so he started putting more effort into the social media aspect. And I agree with you that I think that's helped the longevity of his career.
Maybe that's it, right? Because, and this is why I bring up that point too, is because Dino, they brought him out in opening ceremonies on an HRC bike.
Yeah.
In the grandpa outfit.
Yeah.
So that it has to contribute in some point.
I'm not disagreeing that it doesn't contribute.
Yeah.
You had asked whether him landing that ride was a result of the social media aspect.
That's true. I did ask that question.
I don't think it did. I think it's his relationship with Honda. And when you were looking at when they had started talking about a potential fill-in rider, when you're looking at all the other riders that are on Honda and who they could have put on it, I don't think there was anybody else that made more sense than Dean, regardless of his social media.
Very true. I do agree, but I think that was one of those things that was like a tipping point too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think it was like, oh, we got Dean. Dean's a possibility. Should we take him or no? And then somebody goes, well, dude, Dean's been good to us in the past. And he has all this social media following, and we know we're not going to win from him, but at least we know we're going to get some good, positive advertisement.
That's fair.
Out of Dean.
Yeah.
Right? So that kind of, to me, that's the way I looked at it. But I wanted to know from your standpoint as a team manager and all that stuff. So, I mean, that brings up a good point too, right? It's like that you're talking about his past, and that really defines who a rider is, right?
Yeah.
Like your parents, who they are, how you've dealt with problems in the past. What have you been through in the past? Because everybody has a past, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
I actually hit up Dean before the season.
I know, and you've helped Dean out before, right?
Oh, he needed transport last year for a few rounds of outdoors, so that he could kind of get into the SMX because he was right on the bubble.
Totally.
And so he did a few outdoor rounds, and we transported his stuff for him, and that was great. He's awesome.
Yeah, super freaking cool.
Yeah, I really like those guys that are genuine. Like the guy that you see or that you think they are, they really are. And that was one of the biggest appealing things with Dayton is, I seen him and heard of him and watched him ride. But, once we actually signed him, he was going to Minios to get his points for Supercross.
Yeah.
And so that kind of whole week was the first time that we had been around him and his mechanic Tyler. And so when they went out there to get their points and stuff, the week didn't go as he had hoped. And really what I was able to learn from Dayton in those moments is, when he comes back from the moto and, he's kind of processing his emotions with, disappointment or whatever he's feeling in that moment. And then you've got these kids that storm over and are super excited to see him.
Yeah.
I loved the fact that he, every day, regardless of his mood, he's always putting, the people that are there to see him first. And I think that that's important, is being able to kind of set aside your emotions and understanding that you have this level of commitment to your fan base, being able to process that emotion and still be that guy that you're known for and that you are ultimately. That was really cool to see. Even at AZ Open, similar. He got third in the first moto. He was banged up from Minios with his wrist. And then, second moto on the start, him and a guy, get together and it blows out his finger. And he's at the rig and he's devastated. He's trying to process those emotions, and group of kids comes over. He's hurting. He was talking about like, well, shoot, like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And we tried to explain to him that there was plenty of opportunity to get his points. And it was cool to see him take that moment and be there for his fans, take part in kind of the moment and put his feelings aside. So I think like people like Dean, people like Dayton, like that genuine personality that they have, I think that's huge in who they are and how they've gotten to where they're at.
Yeah, totally. I definitely agree with you. I want to talk about something that happened that's pretty big with you. Is you touched on it a little bit, but we're going to touch on it some more, is the Pirelli deal. Because I think that was probably, from an outsider looking in, that was probably one of the biggest, I don't want to say first steps, but in my eyes, like almost a big first step, because that really got you to the races. It got you distributing tires. Like you talked about, you met a lot of people. How nerve-wracking was that to meet Pirelli, figure that whole deal out? Was it even nerve-wracking, or was it something that you really wanted? You went out and grabbed it. And how did that elevate the whole team and the whole situation?
Yeah. So before the Pirelli thing, I remember this was probably one of our defining moments, but I was at Paula working with Pirelli trackside. And I had ended up, Michael Lindsay at the time had FXR Chaparral Honda. Yeah. And so I'd gone over there and they were winding down, and I'd heard that his rig was for sale. So I went over to talk to him about it.
Come on.
And that was one of those things, like, it was like, yeah, that'd be phenomenal if we ever had one.
Yeah.
And dream. So I remember I went over there and talked to him, and I was surprised at a lot of the information. And so I was kind of processing it throughout the day. And I remember leaving, Paula that day, and I called Macy and I was like, hey, I think I want to buy a rig. And she's like, get the fuck out of here. And
that's a fun call to the wife right there.
Yeah. And so
did you know how much it was at that point?
Yeah.
Did you tell her what was her emotion like when you told her the price?
We're a lot different in the fact that, like, I'm a little more comfortable being uncomfortable. Yeah. And she's very like, if I'm comfortable and this is what I like, then
we're good.
I don't venture too far out of that. Yeah. And so it's always been an interesting dynamic with us, but that was kind of the moment when it was one of those things that was like, a dream versus like, all right, this is real, like we could do something.
Yeah, we could pull this off.
Yeah. And so we ended up not buying that rig. We bought a different one, and that's what we raced out of with our amateur team. And so during that year that we were racing with the amateur team, I was still doing stuff trackside with Pirelli and working with that, relationship, just trying to see what was there. And that's when I had found out that the contract was coming up and that they were accepting bids. And at first, at first it was one of those things where they were like, yeah, we're getting bids, but we're not going to get a bid from you.
I love it.
And so
totally, somehow that's how that shit works sometimes, right?
Yeah. And
unfortunately
100%. And so that's where they, they're a corporation. They've got a ton of different people that are working on projects. And this was one of those projects where I'm like, all right, like I've got to understand, how this goes about. What is their award process? What are they looking for? What's important to them? Yeah. And so that's where, through working with their marketing team, working with the race side, working with, at that point, it was Scott Griffith that was running Pirelli USA. Yeah. And then Josh Whitmore, who's still over there to this day. Yeah. But working with that team and trying to figure out, all right, like, what don't you guys like? And that's where I think being trackside with them and hearing like the pain points. Yeah. I'm like, all right, if I can give a solution to this problem that they're having, then maybe I'm in the conversation. And so that's where I was able to take a different approach to some of the things that were pain points for, their program. And when I was able to present that to them, a couple people like at first were like, no, like they weren't interested in hearing it. But then I was able to kind of get to the right ear and give the presentation. And so then I was in the conversation.
So this took some work.
It was a lot. Yeah. It was certainly a lot, but it was just one of those things that I'm like, well, if you're going to give it to somebody, like, why not be me?
What the heck?
Yeah. And so we were able to work on things. And eventually I was able to submit my bid. They accepted it. And it was one of those things where it kind of drug out a little bit because like I kept hearing they were going to award it and they weren't. And I'm like, man, like, and then
what's the deal, bro?
And I'm hearing from like, some people like, hey, you got it. And then other ones are like, we haven't decided. And I'm like, and by this time it's September.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, it was interesting. And so when we finally were notified that we got it, what
was that moment like?
Stoked. We were so happy. Just
how did you get it? Was it a phone call, like over the phone? Like
it was a video. It was a video meeting, like Zoom or Teams.
Yeah.
And so they had kind of let me know formally that we had gotten it. And then at that point, it was like, okay, like the rig is set up, because the rig that we bought wasn't really the rig that we had wanted originally, like to race out of. Yeah. So I was like, perfect. This will be a great transition for that rig. And then we can get a different one to, the team can race out of. Yeah. And so we spent a ton of time, we ripped everything out of it. We built the layout internally. I mean, we were able to hold 600 and something tires at any given time.
Wow.
We developed an inventory management system, so that inventory was first in, first out.
Yeah.
We had developed a pretty cool marketing area, which kind of led to some pain points in the industry because they weren't allowed to market the way that we were marketing.
Yeah.
But it was a blast. It was a lot of fun. And so it was unfortunate when they decided to pull out of the market because we have so they just came out with the new MX-32.
Okay, let's check that out.
And this new tire, the front and the rear are completely different.
Yeah.
It is a brand new tire.
So this is the new, what is this right here?
MX-32.
This is brand new.
Brand new. Came out last month.
It looks solid for sure. It's way different. Like a completely different tire.
Total transparency, Pirelli don't come after me, but the issue with Pirelli has always been the durability line.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where with like in Europe, Pirelli is the tire.
Absolutely.
And
like everybody runs Pirelli. I mean, we're talking F1 runs Pirelli. They know what they're doing.
Yes.
If they want to do it, they can do it.
So when the challenge in the US market has always been, and a lot of people don't understand, like Joe Gibbs Racing used to run them. Like Stewart, when he was at Joe Gibbs, he was on Pirellis. So they've been in racing a long time, especially in the US market. But one of the issues that they've had is translating the racing success to at the end of the day, the consumer. And the shortcoming has always been the rear tire and its ability to last. Everyone loves the way it feels. Everyone likes the tire. It just would not last. And what a lot of people don't understand is like, even like the Dunlop spec tire, not the spec tire that they're selling at the dealerships, but the actual spec tire. If you look at one of those at the end of a main event in Supercross, it's coming apart. Like the tires aren't meant to last. They're meant to be the best tire for that 20 period. Minutes. And so Pirelli that's what their tire is. The same tire we race is the same tire we sell. That was, kind of their marketing approach. And so over the last several years, they've worked hard on these new MX32s to kind of tailor more towards what like the US market is looking for, where they want a tire that's good, that can be competitive as far as feel and structure with, like, let's say Dunlop, but also is going to last. And that's where I think they've really had a lot of success with this tire. And so going back to the trackside service, knowing that changes were coming, I'm like, man, like we've put so much effort into getting grid share. With the pro riders. And, we worked with a lot of great teams. Phoenix Honda was on them, and we were finally starting to, build some progress, and being able to have this tire out there was, going to be a big selling point for the consumer. And so when they had made the decision to take a step back in the US market from racing and focus more on dealer and market share, I understand the decision. I was just like, man, like, damn it. It's tough, because I felt like we had just kind of gotten things moving. Progress, And so, hopefully one day they'll circle back and be in the market. But for now, we're still working with them. It's the only tire that we carry in our shop. So we can get you Dunlop, we can get you Maxxis, we can get you whatever you want. But that's one of the unique things about our shop is the partners that we work with, whether it's Seven, whether it's Aero, whether it's ETS, whether it's Pirelli, we carry their products exclusively in our shop. But we're set up with every OEM, we're set up with the aftermarket distributors, whether it's Parts Unlimited and WPS. But we floor exclusively the partners that we race with.
If you need parts, bro, where do you go?
Stan Benson Racing.
Come on, dude. If you need trackside assistance, where do you go?
Stan Benson Racing.
I mean, dude, I've been telling him every week.
I've heard Tyler doing it. It's cool to be able to do it.
It is. It's really cool. It's really cool. All right. Well, let's talk about 2025.
Yeah.
Right. So we got Brandon Gibson. On 450. We got Braden.
Yeah.
Braden Gibson on 450. Matty Jorgensen, Harri Kullas, Brock Bennett on 250, Slade Verrell on 250, Dayton Briggs on 250, and Blake Gardner on 250.
Yes.
So we have a full
Did
rig.
you say Dylan Cunha?
Oh, I did not, even though I have them written down. Dylan Cunha as well. On 250. You got a lot of riders.
Yes.
How has that been? So let's go through Braden. Braden Gibson, Matty Jorgensen, Harri Kullas, which he was in top 10 at the start this weekend. Unreal. Brock Bennett been turning it up. Slade Verrell qualified 13th this weekend. Pretty cool. Dayton Briggs. We all know Dayton Briggs. Talked about him a little bit. Blake Garner and Dylan Cunha. All definitely had their shining moments through Supercross, and we're working on stepping in the right direction for outdoor. But how has that been to manage that many guys and help out that many guys?
I'd love to tell you that it's perfect and we got it figured out, but that's not the case.
It's a lot.
And I feel like, between the mechanics, our drivers, because we have a transport rig as well that does privateer transport.
Yep.
And then, the main semi that goes to all the pro races.
Yeah.
And so those guys help out a ton. And then, we've got a good group of mechanics. Zach that's kind of running the day to day and keeping things going during, race weekends. And then Maya and Chris, myself, Mike, we're all just trying to, put everything together and help out with where our strengths are.
Yeah.
We're as good as I feel like the year is gone. There's still room for improvement.
Yeah.
And the nice thing, I think more importantly, is that we've got solid communication between the inner workings of the team. To where when there's a problem or there's a shortcoming, we're able to get together quickly and implement some sort of solution to be able to get us moving in the right direction. So it's certainly a lot having, 8 riders under the tent. But it's one of those things Mike has such a big heart and we all care about, we get personally invested in a lot of these young men and, what they're doing. They all have various challenges. They come from different backgrounds. And
that's for damn sure, baby.
Well, and that's why I liked Don Mita for a while was doing the privateer.
Don Maeda,
Thank you.
No, you're good.
They were doing like the privateer where they would like find somebody in the back of the paddock and they would talk to them and kind of get their background. And I really appreciated that because all of those kids.
Actually, to bring that up, we're gonna give a little shout out here to Track Talkers. Look forward to this. We are gonna do a new segment coming up that is going to be anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes. We're going to do it short, but I am going to try before Supercross season. I'm going to try to do all 80 riders.
I love it.
That's the goal. And I'm just going to do 10 to 15 minutes and it's going to be get to know the rider.
Yep.
And we're going to try to do every single guy that makes the night show. So all the Track Talkers fans, check that out. We're going to be pushing that forward because I think that's a big deal.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? We got to get to know every single guy. And that way, if you have a favorite rider on the track, I don't care if he's first or 40th, get to know some about him.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Go ahead.
And that's one of the things that I like about where the sport's at right now with, I think it's transitioning away from the kind of polished professional, we'll call it the Facebook family, right? Where everything looks great on social media.
The Facebook family. I love that. So many gems in this podcast.
I like the fact that we're seeing emotions and we're seeing real personalities.
Yeah.
And I think that if the sport's going to progress into something a little more mainstream, we've got to have a little bit more of that. And that's where I wish, like even in the paddock, right? Like you've got, the factory rigs and then it's kind of everybody else. Yeah. And so that's where I think, we're not the first to do it. You've got Club, you've got AEO, you've got PRMX, us, Bubba Pauly's team with ISRT. You've got a lot of those teams that are bringing a professional presence with a structured element that Feld and Pro Motocross are looking for. That's really at the end of the day, that's what's going to provide the riders the opportunity to showcase, what they're doing, their background, why they're different to your point than the other guys that they're lining up against. And if we could continue to evolve that and make motocross a little more real. Because like even on TV, like when you see a Supercross track or like this weekend, I was standing at the downhill before the rollers and watching how rough that got and Deegan coming down that, it was unbelievable. I thought he was going to come off of the track every time he came down and somehow he made that outside line work and he made a ton of passes there. But on TV, like when I watch the replay, he just coasts down. Like there's no way to kind of capture that.
Yeah, the realism.
And I wish if we could capture a little bit more of that, both on the track and off, I think that the sport would really kind of grow into that more mainstream aspect.
Yeah, and I think that's up to us, the media, because the biggest part, and I truly believe this, you'll never get that experience from any video.
No.
You're just not going to get it. So the way that we have to do that to grow the sport is somehow we have to get more fans to the race.
Yeah.
Because there's really nothing like watching a race at the race. Football, sometimes it's better to watch on TV. Obviously you're going to get the atmosphere, but it's the same thing. You're watching somebody throw a football, you're hearing the contact and it's a different atmosphere and different vibe, obviously. But there's nothing like going to a Supercross or an outdoor and seeing it in person. The video footage really I don't even know the words to say. It just doesn't even come close to the difference between watching football on TV versus in person versus Supercross on TV and being in person. It just looks so much bigger in real life.
Yeah.
And more intense.
And you even see it like in Supercross when you watch the LCQ and you see those guys kind of making mistakes.
Yeah.
Versus the same guy, the same riders doing the same track in the main event.
Yeah.
It's not that the track changed or anything like that. It's that those top 10 guys are polished.
They're polished.
And you've got those guys in the LCQ that they're trying to figure it out. Some of them, they may be the third time on a Supercross track.
Especially in the lights class.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So to your point, if it can be highlighted and you can get people in the stands and to be able to have it resonate, then that's when you're going to start seeing them watch it more on TV.
Yeah. And I think that's why I want to do that podcast about Get to Know the Rider for all 40, because it's how I built my career, John.
Almost knocked it off.
I know you did. But that's how I built my career. It's one guy at a time. And Deegan is going to bring in a big majority of fans, right?
Yeah.
He has a huge following. But when you add up at the back end, 1,000 here, 1,000 fans over here, 1,000 over here, 1,000 over here, 1,000 over here, after 20 of the back guys come up, that's another 20, 25,000, if only...
Yeah.
If only they have 1,000 fans, only 1,000 views. That's almost a full stadium at a couple of our rounds because they only hold 30,000, 35,000.
Yep.
Think about that. Right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So the more we can get everybody involved and make every single rider on the track look like a superstar, and that's going to be my goal, is to kind of do that, I think the more we're going to get to the sport. But this podcast is not about the sport. It's about Jon Majors and Stan Benson Racing. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about how you guys made it happen this year. Let's talk about some sponsors that helped you out and with MRP SBR and how all that came about and who is helping you out on the team this year?
So how it came about was kind of interesting. We coming into 2024, we had we were going to do the amateur stuff, and we had Slade Varola, we had Crockett Myers, we had Michael Durden, and we were
badasses.
Yeah, they're great kids.
Yep.
And so we were going to do the amateur nationals, but then, trying to get them into the combines and the SMX Next program and things like that.
Yeah.
And so, all the boys went up and rode, the Boise, the first, 1 and 2 rounds of arena cross in Boise.
Yeah.
And so Crockett loved it, ended up doing the whole thing, got picked up by Ajax, and, he's doing great with DVD.
Sweet.
And so, he went on to do that. And then a week later, Caden Broswell had gone down with HBI.
Yep.
And so Slade got the call to fill in for him. And so that's where Slade was like, all right, this is my shot. And so he went and did that. And then it was almost a week later after that, the boys were training over at Jet Reynolds' place.
Yeah.
And Mikey had an accident. Michael Durden had an accident. And unfortunately, he's in a wheelchair now because of it.
Wow.
But he's... So, sorry, not to get off topic.
No,
with Mikey.
go ahead.
Mikey's great, but
absolutely.
The Durdens are such a phenomenal family, and anybody that's been in motocross, especially in California, knows them.
Yeah.
And his older brother still races, and they have a middle brother, Chris, that runs dwarf cars.
Uh-huh.
The family, Michael's dad is Greg, and then his brother is John.
Yeah.
He races drag racing. So like the whole family is all about racing.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're just the most down to earth, genuine people. And so when Mikey got hurt, he worked through a lot of rehabilitation, and they were actually at the round this weekend, and it was really good to see all of them. But I mean, he's cruising around. He's been helping riders like Jordan Torres. Kean's gone up to their place and stayed for a while and worked with them. But they're running a track in NorCal up by the Hollister area.
Yeah.
Phenomenal dirt, great track.
Love it.
Michael's training people, so it's cool to see his love for the sport transition, into something that he's really, really passionate about.
That's amazing.
And so going back to into 2024, all of that kind of happened, in December. And
oh my gosh.
So it's like, well, like I don't know.
Here we go, baby.
Yeah. So 2024, as far as like the team aspect, we didn't do a whole lot. Kean still raced, but he was coming back from an injury.
Yeah.
And so we still kept the shop going, and we were still doing our thing there, and so we from there, that was also the year that Pirelli had pulled out. So it was kind of one of those things where it was just one thing after another. It was a few steps forward and then 10 steps back.
Yeah.
But we started working on everything for 2025, talking with, all the different partners that we have. And that's where I was actually talking with Michael Lindsay, and he had told me, he was like, hey, the guys up at Michael's Reno are putting something together. Why don't you guys get in touch? And so we had a few calls. I went up there, we talked. We just kind of hit it off. It was just real natural, and you could tell that we kind of aligned on where we were at with everything. And so from there, this was October before the season, and so we just said, "Yep, let's do it." So we got working on the rig, we got working on bikes, and I think one of the first sponsors that hopped on board was 7MX, and it worked out great because they've got a partnership where they just came out with their new goggles with 100%.
Yeah.
And so then they also started distribution for Aero helmets in the US. And so it was one of those things where, we've worked with Fly in the past, and Fly's been great, but when we were working with 7, the nice thing about 7 is that what we were doing felt real to them.
Yeah.
And
you didn't feel like a small fish in a big pond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, no disrespect to Fly, but they're
a great company.
They have a ton of teams in the paddock.
Yes.
So do we want to be one of many, or do we want to be important to our sponsors? Because for us, our sponsors make what we can do. And if we didn't have those partnerships, we want, not only do we want to be important for them, but we also want to move the needle. And
amen. Right?
Yes. So
we're moving a lot of needles here in this podcast.
Trying. So with 7 and Aero, it was natural. And then we were able to bring Niche Cycling on board as the title sponsor. And Niche is one of those companies. They've been around for 18 years. They're based out of Thailand. They've got a U.S. Branch with John Peters and Chris Fortuna, and again, they're very passionate about their craft.
Yeah.
It cracks me up. John will come into the paddock, and he's on his bike, and he's like, "Yeah, I just did a quick 70 miles." Like, what?
Yeah, you're insane.
I haven't walked 70 miles this year, and you're riding a bike in a day.
Bro, I did one time. I did a century, which is 100 miles.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ridden my road bike since.
I don't think I drove 70 miles to get here.
Oh,
so one of the cool things about Niche is obviously they're passionate about what they do, and it was a good opportunity for us to partner with a brand that wanted to increase their exposure in the U.S. market.
Totally.
And one of the nice things about their bikes is they are unbelievably well built.
I seen a couple. I was so impressed with the display that you guys have in front of your rig. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
These things are insane.
And it's been great too, because
we'll throw a niche bike on the screen.
There we
Check
go.
it out. Check it out right now.
They have to. Yeah. Go to Niche Cycling, check them out. They've got mountain bikes now. Their road bikes are their bread and butter, and it's unbelievable. Like even the derailers, because I'm not familiar with cycling, obviously, but even the derailers are battery powered. Like they have an automatic setting. The seat posts and the adjustability in the frame to fit the rider. That's one of the biggest things that we've heard from our riders is the fact that they're so comfortable in the chassis. Wow. And so them coming on board was huge because it helped our riders with their training aspect. We have a couple of them in warm up on both amateur and the pro side. And so being able to work with companies like that has been huge for us. And then obviously I mentioned Digital Marketing Kings, Throttle Syndicate. Has been a long partner of FSBR's, Ryan and his team over there. They're incredible. I mean, they treat us like royalty. The service that they give us is above and beyond what I've ever experienced with a graphics company. And then moving into like Mika and DT1 with the Timmermans, great people, and their products are awesome. They take care of us. We've got Galfer, we've got XPR for motors. There's a lot, and that was kind of our approach going into the year. Was we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. And that was one of the things when I moved into the race team on the amateur side. Is I took the approach of like, all right, we're going to work with like someone over here, because if we work with, like, we're on Cowie, so if we work with PC, we're not going to get PC's best. And this was an assumption in my head. Absolutely. Because they have all these other riders that we're competing with. It's not an
assumption, it's facts, right? If you're a small fish in a big pond, unfortunately, that's the way the world works. It's the way the world turns, right? And then as you grow and you become better, then you get more help, you get more love. It's the way that the world works, and I don't see it changing anytime soon.
But PC's B spec, or
whatever you want to call it,
is far better for the Cowie than somebody else's A spec.
There you go.
So and same thing with suspension, everything else. So when I was putting together the amateur stuff, we tried to like be somebody's priority. But we didn't really do our homework as far as what we were getting, as far as the quality and the products that were there. And so we didn't want to make the same mistake with the pro side. And so that's one of the things that we did was we were able to work with established people on this chassis in their respective niche of the industry. And so that's where for us it was a no-brainer to work with Chad and his team over at XPR for the motors. And solid. We have 15 motors in rotation between practice and race. A
lot of shit to keep track of.
Definitely. Zach and Maya and the boys have their hands full with all of that. And then suspension wise, we work with Altus. It's Todd Brown, who longtime Husqvarna technician. He's incredible. Absolutely incredible. And same thing with titanium bolts going through Mass Tech, and just the we wanted to make sure that the chassis that we provided was solid and was going to give the riders the best opportunity to succeed. Because running 15th in a moto, but then having a DNF, that doesn't do them any good, and it doesn't do us any good.
No.
So we wanted to make sure that the bike that we put together was solid, and then from there we'll start progressing, little changes here and there to continue to improve. But it's always interesting too, because like Harri, for instance, the majority of the bike is stock. We put on the titanium, and everything. And he's like, nope, take that off, put that back on. And then you've got other riders that they like the aftermarket hangers, they like the aftermarket pegs. He even runs stock pegs.
Wow.
So things like that are interesting. Like as you do testing and you work with the riders, you kind of figure out what they like, what they don't.
Yeah.
And you know, you're really, that I think is more important than anything. Being able to tailor your program to meet the kind of needs that the rider's looking for is important.
Yeah. So now that you're kind of in more of the pro side, how's the amateur side been going? Is that kind of shut off? How is that balance?
It's tough. It really is. But on the amateur side, we have Dane Morales, who runs A class. We have Owen Bills, who runs A class. We have Kian, and then we have Dylan Graham, who's on the senior mini, and he runs some of the super mini stuff.
Yep.
So we've got 4 riders on the amateur side. Dane he's full time at club. He's been working hard. He was doing really, really well beginning of the season, and he ended up tearing his meniscus and his ACL. So he's rehabbing that. He's actually at the regional this weekend in Paula. Owen is down there as well, and Owen's a local Reno kid that, you know, he was at SOB for a while, and he's back out here in the West Coast.
Yeah.
So and then Dylan's from down south. He's great kid. I remember first time that I was talking to Dylan, it was through text message, and I thought I was talking to his dad, Neil.
Yeah.
He's so polished and articulate. I mean,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was impressive. And then so they ended up coming by the rig in San Diego and got to meet the family. And so going back to it, it's a lot. There's a lot there. Our, you know, regionals obviously is important, getting qualified for Loretta's, and then from there we go into Mammoth, and then we've got Loretta's, and then Ponca, and then Minios, and then AZ Open.
Yep.
So that's kind of our main schedule for the rest of the year on the amateur side.
Nice.
We'll try and do like Thursday night motocross and you know, the Washougal amateur days and things like that. But yeah, it's a tough balance. We're still trying to work on, you know, how we can deliver on the pro side as well as the amateur side. And it's fun though. We really, really enjoy this stuff, and being able to work with a lot of these kids, whether it's the pro or amateur side, is really why we do this. It's been a blast.
Yeah. Let's get into a big question I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
What's it take if you're a kid out there, or, you know, a parent that is trying to help his kid? What's it take? What are you looking for as a team manager from amateur and pro standpoint? What would it take to get on Stan Benson Racing?
Perseverance is a big thing.
Okay. Like, what are you looking for?
Well, it's not going to be one of those things where you hit me up on social media, or you get my number from someone and you're like, hey, can I get a ride? And I tell you no. and you're like, okay, well, I guess I don't get a ride. And you kind of move on.
Yeah.
You've got to persevere. You've got to be committed. On the amateur side, results play a little more than they do on the pro side.
Without a doubt.
And so,
because you got to make it pro too.
Yeah. And that's the reason why we still do the amateur stuff, is because if we can kind of help develop and cultivate talent that, you know, we see early on that, you know, we believe in, it puts us in the driver's seat to be able to get that kid or, you know, that young man when they turn pro.
Yeah.
And so I would say, number one, be consistent. Get used to hearing no and not quitting.
Yeah.
Because that's really, especially right now, like for this year, we're not going to add anybody.
Yeah.
You know, we've got our hands full on the amateur side, and 4 is, you know, where it's capped at. There's also, you see a lot of the hopping. It's like, who can give, there's not really loyalty.
Yeah.
And so when you're looking for a company, like let's say you want Liat to help you, you're not going to go to Liat and say, hey, can I have free gear? And they're going to tell you no. And you're going to be like, all right, I guess that's it. And then you're going to go to the next person.
Yeah.
If you really want a Liat sponsorship, the easiest way for somebody to support you
Yeah.
is for you to show that you deserve that support.
I love that. You're.
I'm getting so
dude,
close.
Just show the helmet really quick.
All right.
Pull it off. Show the helmet real quick.
I'm getting so close to knocking it over. These things are awesome. They're unbelievably quiet. The technology that goes into them is incredible.
Yep.
I don't even have the spare parts with them, but they come with a mud visor.
Yeah.
So no duct taping a lens on the end of your helmet if you get into a mudder.
That's awesome.
They've got all the spare parts. The technology that goes into these things is incredible.
That's awesome.
So yeah, another good option for those that are looking.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah.
Riders.
Yeah, no, we're talking about the whole Liat thing, and I totally agree with you. Like, you can't just go on, baby, gone, and I'm on to the next one. You know what I mean? It's like, you got to stick with somebody and you got to persevere, like you said, and you got to keep trying. It's not like you just give up after one. But what I really want to know, what do you have to do to get on Stan Benson Racing? Come on, give me like a definitive. Do you got to go win a race? What are you looking for straight up? Like, if I'm a dad and I got a son that's doing good, do I go up to the race? Do I talk to you? Like, how do you even approach that?
Come talk to me. Come talk to me. I'll approach people that I've identified, but if you're not on our radar, the easiest thing is come talk to me. Yeah. Every time.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem exchanging contact info.
Yeah.
But I'm also, if you're interested in being a part of the team, I'm not going to be the one to put out the effort.
Totally.
Like, you need to put out the effort. You need to be the one that's proactive.
Come on.
And that's communicating. And so,
yeah, and I think that's a big thing, like, right, is that people don't understand. We want to see you, and this is what I always did. And it worked for me. I had my whole program set up, and I knew what I was doing, and then all of a sudden, people want to be a part of it. And that's really, like, as far as amateurs go, like, that's the biggest thing I can tell you. Dude, be on your journey. Find out the way you're going to have success, and then people will want to be there with you.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of part of the whole Stan Benson Racing, especially as an amateur side, right? You want to see them persevere, do good, have potential, and then what we can do as Stan Benson Racing is then help you get to that point with the resources that we have.
Absolutely.
This isn't a savior program.
Yeah.
This isn't, obviously, we lost that. Obviously, we're not Kawasaki or whatever you want to call it. We're not just going to go and come to your front door and Cinderella story. That's not motocross. That's 1%. We're here, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I was always like, okay, we have to do this. We have to make it to all these races. We have to do all this stuff and be successful. And then people want to get on board with that.
Yeah. Yeah. To go back to your question, it's not like there's it's not like if you win this one race, then all of a sudden we want you.
Yeah. Not like if you go win Loretta's. I mean, that could be a helpful factor. Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of those kids that are winning Loretta's or even top 5 at Loretta's, the rest of the year kind of paints that picture. It's not like,
without a doubt,
rarely do you get that surprise person that wins Loretta's that you didn't know was capable.
And even if they do, they usually don't get the full ride like the other kid that had a good whole entire year that ended up on the podium.
And that's the other thing that I see on the amateur side is that a lot of people are chasing a ride. So like they think that if they win this or they win that they're all of a sudden going to be on the radar.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that anymore. Yeah. They're not just sitting there trying to poach those kids. There's so much more that goes into it in this day and age with, the social media that we talked about, the family aspect of it. Like a lot of people don't realize that, like whether it's Orange Brigade or some of these other amateur programs, that it's not just the rider that signs a contract, the family is signing a contract as well, as far as a code of conduct and everything else. Yep. So they understand, what I failed to see at the beginning of, the kid that you sign, it isn't just the kid. Like, you've got the family, you've got, the social media aspect, you've got the way that they conduct themselves off the track. There's a lot that goes into it. And really, it kind of goes back to that conversation that we had about 45th through 20th, where you have to figure out what separates you, because any given day in the US, there's kids that are winning amateur events, and there's 25 nationals throughout the year now.
Yeah.
So getting a number one plate is kind of saturated.
Yeah.
And you've got to figure out what differentiates you from the kid that you're lining up against. And you've got to figure out a way to get people to buy into that.
Yep.
Because ultimately, at the end of the day, you're a sales rep for these brands that you're representing, whether it's the team, the brand, and you're the whole reason why they invest in you is because they want to see sales, right?
Yeah.
Like, if Seven wasn't selling gear, they're not going to have money to invest in us.
Boom.
And if we don't do our part to make sure that we move the needle for Seven, why on earth are they going to invest in us?
Bam. I love it. All right. The big lingering question. Okay. What's the vision? What's the vision for the next 5 years for Stan Benson Racing? What would you like to see out of the team?
For the team of the shop?
Everything.
Okay.
Let's go shop first.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go shop first, and then we'll go team.
Yeah. Shop, I think our next step is a dealer line. There's a few of them that are available in the Bakersfield area.
Mm-hmm.
Husqvarna, Gas. So we're trying to get that figured out right now and move that forward. That's kind of the key for us with bike sales. It's really not about being able to sell the bike. It's about being the OEM.
Yes.
Cause I mean, the bikes you're getting, like, not including flooring, but you're getting 11 to 18% profit in a bike if you're a dealer.
Yeah.
And you're also, like, less than 5% of the US population rides bikes, much less rides dirt bikes.
Yeah.
So we're in an industry that's selling to a very niche market.
Yeah.
And so with understanding that, the biggest way to sell is to increase the people that you can sell to. And so that's where I think a lot of shops down south, like AEO and places like that, they do a good job of getting the consumer on the product.
Yeah.
So then they need the parts. And that's where being a dealer, that's where you make your profit, because OEM parts is like 40 to 50%, depending on what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then, aftermarket stuff, whether it's gear sales or tires, it's 30%, fuel's 15%. So, when you go, like, fuel is an example, when you go and buy a pail of MX21 for $250, you're like, holy cow, this shop's raking it in. But
realistically,
when you see that they make 15%, and they make
instead
$30
of 60% markup.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for us as a shop, it's going to be important for us to get that dealer line, so that we can be the OEM. We're there for service, we're there for parts, and to get more people on the bike, so that way we have more people to sell to.
Absolutely.
And then as far as the team, we want to continue to build. We still want to maintain the ability to create opportunity for riders that may not have it.
Yeah.
But we are also in a results-driven sport, so we want to elevate. And making one main event for Supercross was not our goal. We expected to be a little more consistent with being in the main events. And so with that, we've got to work towards that for next year.
Which it was a big hindrance having Harri get hurt too.
Yeah, that was a hard one.
You guys definitely had some things go against you. Slade had a couple good results that just right at the last second deteriorated. It was a tough year, but that's how Supercross goes, and you got to learn, right?
Yep, definitely. And so we'll see. There's still plenty of racing for Pro Motocross this year, and then the SMX. So we're going to try and get some results, and we're having conversations with, sponsors for next year, and we'll see where we end up rider wise. But the goal for the team is going to be to continue to progress, just not plateauing, not settling. We want to continue to push the needle. And, we're going to do that through the support that we give, the riders that are on the bikes, what the team is capable of, and the, the sponsors that we're able to help, on along the way. So
yeah, I love it. Jon Majors with the vision, baby. I love that. Well, I want to do some other stuff.
Okay.
Let's, this is kind of a big topic in the industry. Yeah, I don't know. I got to mention that whole Stan Benson Racing, dude. I had no idea, obviously, how much went into it. That was, wow. Talk about eye opener, right? All the stuff behind the scenes. Like,
Yeah.
that's freaking amazing. The whole story that's incredible, bro. I can't believe, I really couldn't believe when I found out you were running the team, the amateur team, the shop, and then you had a job on top of that. That's pretty gnarly. That's a lot of stuff to juggle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, definitely really cool. If you guys haven't, order from Stan Benson. You can call on the phone and order ETS fuel and Pirelli tires and whatever, right?
Yeah, so we have the website, and we've got a good chunk of our products on there.
Yeah.
So you can order from the website. We ship nationwide, regardless of what the product is. And then from the shop, you can call or text, whatever's easiest for you.
At midnight.
Doesn't matter. Midnight.
I love it.
So yeah, you can call or text. We also do deliveries. So like if we're going trackside or, if you need fuel delivered in SoCal or Nevada or wherever, we can figure out a way to get it in your hands. So yeah, we're set up with a ton of different OEMs. So if you need OEM parts, we can get you OEM parts. If you need aftermarket, whether it's tires, gear, whatever the case may be, we would appreciate it if people supported us, because it helps us create these opportunities.
That's what I'm saying. If we're not supporting Stan Benson, we're killing the dream. You guys need to get on top of it, right? Stan Benson Racing. If you're in the Bakersfield area, if you're around the world, we want somebody to order some fuel from Australia. It'll cost a lot, though.
There it is. You know what's interesting?
What?
Hopefully this doesn't get me in trouble. We ship.
It might. You never know.
We get a ton of orders for AMSOIL from Asia.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I love it.
And we ship a ton over to Asia.
Perfect.
It's surprising to me.
Whatever makes it work,
That's
right?
it. Yeah.
Whatever makes that needle move.
That's it.
We love it. We ship everywhere. Stan Benson Racing. What are you guys doing? If you guys need OEM parts, Pirelli tires, ETS fuel, where do you go?
Stan Benson Racing.
Come on, baby. If you're in the Bakersfield area, where do you go?
Stan Benson Racing.
If you're at the local track and you need trackside support, where do you go?
Stan Benson Racing.
Come on, baby. Well, let's get into hot topics. I just got a few more questions for you. Man, we've been arguing about this a lot. So Tom Vial's up for his 450 ride.
Yeah.
Right? He's up.
Mhm.
Like he has to next year.
Yeah.
Because of the title.
Points. Yeah.
Yes. And now we've heard a lot of rumors that Tomac's ridden the bike over at KTM.
Yep.
And that they're negotiating deals with Eli Tomac.
Yep.
I say if Eli Tomac gets that KTM contract, Vial's out. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're Ian Harris, you're a team manager, you've been in this position, what do you do? Do you go, I'm keeping Tomac? Because Tomac's going to take up he's going to take up a lot of bike, a lot of parts, a lot of money.
Yep.
Tom Vial's been with you forever. What do you do?
That's tough.
That's why I'm asking you the question, because this is going to hurt somebody's heart a lot.
If I'm choosing between Vial and Tomac, it's obvious that Tomac still has the drive.
Yeah.
And I know a while there he was, talking about maybe it being his last, and I don't think, the injuries settled well with him. And so obviously it's reignited that fire.
Totally.
But my guess is he'll be around for a couple more years at least.
Yep. 27, probably retire.
If I'm looking at that, I think that's a perfect opportunity to allow Beaumaire, who is incredibly talented and is probably going to end up in that ride in a couple of years.
Without a doubt.
If I'm comparing Vial now on a 450 versus Tomac now on a 450, I think Tomac's the obvious choice.
Yeah.
Not just results, but also following.
Yeah.
You instantly become a fan favorite in the paddock.
Right.
And not to discredit Sexton, but I think Tomac has a little bit larger of a following than what Sexton does.
And it's just a different following. It's more of like a core following, I would say. I don't know. I wouldn't know how to explain Tomac's following compared to Sexton's following. Because Sexton, is definitely got a huge following, but the Tomac fans are just built different.
Yeah.
Right?
Like Plessinger.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's just a hard thing because are you able to make room for Vial? He's only ridden KTM his whole career. Is it one of those things where you try to make room for Vial and you half-ass it for Vial?
No.
Because that's what it would have to be. Or do you just say, Vial, I know you rode for us forever and you got to move up to 450, but you ain't as good as Tomac. Sorry, dude. You're going to have to find somewhere else.
My guess is that their budget is going to be less than what it was. And
without it, that's why this whole conversation's happening.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't think this conversation would happen if KTM wasn't in shambles.
No.
They're obviously struggling right now.
Well, and they've got this across the board because Sexton's moving on.
Yep. We don't know that for a fact, but we're like 99% sure. I mean, there's way too many rumors.
Yeah, but this industry is so bad about that.
I know, dude.
When it comes out, it's like, it.
I mean, exactly. It's like one of those things where it's like, dude,
Prado came out a year before the season. You already knew he was going to Cali.
Exactly. And it's like, if we've heard this many rumors, we're just waiting for confirmation.
Exactly.
But I've heard weirder shit happen.
That's true.
Because here's the other thing that I've heard, and it's very viable, but it could be because this is why he pulled out of the second round. But I don't know this for a fact. I could be totally bullshitting. But if he were to win a championship on a KTM, I heard that he might have a way that he has to stay at KTM. So it kind of is all making sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that could be a first right to refusal, which just means that KTM has one shot to rebuttal and it wouldn't even matter anyways.
Yeah.
Because then Cowie could come back with a larger offer and then it would be just whatever.
Yeah.
So who knows? But either way, this is all with the assumption that Chase Sexton is gone, which we've heard so many rumors.
Yeah.
It's almost guaranteed.
Yeah.
Right?
But so to answer your question with Tomac is the obvious choice. Like this weekend when Tomac and Plessinger were going at it for the lead.
Yeah.
Hangtown was so loud. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so like if you have an opportunity to get somebody like that next to Plessinger, in the same paddock, I think that's a no-brainer. And not to discredit Vial. Vial's incredibly talented and he'll do very,
He's
very
just
well.
not ready, dude.
But yeah, if I could get Tomac over Vial, I would absolutely pick Tomac in a heartbeat. No questions asked.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the next question for you is like, would you try to half-ass a spot for Vial?
No.
Or would you just say, dude, look, I can't, this is what I can do. And I can't really do that to you because of your level. You're shit out of luck, I guess. What do you do?
I know it seems.
Because it's like we talked about loyalty in the industry. I'm sorry to cut you off, but like we talked about loyalty in the industry for a while. You know what I mean? And Tom's been loyal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's been KTM forever. And now, just because he has to move up to 450 and we got Eli Tomac? Man, I mean, I guess it's business. I don't know.
I know it seems like it seems ironic, I guess, because we have 8 riders on our team.
Right?
But if I'm KTM, I'm not looking for the presence. Like I don't need it's a
different goal.
Yeah. And their goal at the end of the day is to win.
Yeah.
Period.
Yep.
So if I'm looking at Vial versus Tomac does that for me.
Yep. Bottom line.
So
bottom line.
It could, and they can't even, like, they don't even have the room on the other teams. I mean, Gas is going to go away, most likely.
Yep.
You've got Cochran that's still signed. You've got Malcolm Stewart that's still signed.
And RJ
that's got to be on a 450.
Yep. And Ryder D.
Exactly.
What about Ryder D? He's been unreal.
He is such a talented kid. And, he was primed for a great year this year and had the practice incident.
Yep.
So I'm sure that if they can make room for him, and I don't know what his contract's like.
Yeah.
He may be locked in for next year as well, but that would be a hard one to lose, I think, too.
Yep. All right, let's finish this thing out. I kind of have been liking to ask this question to everybody in the industry. Dude, what can we do to make, one, the track safer and just improve in motocross? Like, what's something you would like to see change? It's a pretty tough question.
Yeah. I know. So like when they changed the whoop rule to like 9 whoops.
Yep.
I know that was with the intent of making the track safer.
Yeah.
But we're not even, like, most of the injuries aren't even happening in the whoops.
Right.
I think they've got to figure out a way to make obstacles a little less forgiving.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. And what's your theory on that?
Well, like the transitions, for example, a lot of the transitions are really, really tight.
Yeah.
Where I think that they need to make sure that the area, the margin for error is there.
Mm-hmm.
That because most of the time what happens is they'll either underjump or overjump something, and then that puts them in the bad situation.
100.
So it's not them shorting a jump or them overjumping. It's because of the close proximity to the next obstacle that creates that
problem
hazard.
Yeah, the issue.
So I don't know what the actual answer is, and I'm sure.
Well, that's what we're asking you. We're asking you for an actual, if you could do something, what would it be?
Well, I would empower the riders that are actually doing it to give their feedback. And I know they have an outlet right now.
So that's, I guess, the answer in your eyes is like maybe give the riders more power to have feedback.
And it has to be, they have to get feedback from all the riders.
I know that's the hardest part though, because everybody's trying to win. So then you got a guy that hates the whoops, and then you got another guy that loves them.
The challenge, so with Supercross, the riders are the show.
Yep.
And they rely heavily on the track to be able to perform.
Yes.
And you're putting them in a position. This is this was a challenge that we had this year. So we have riders that we're trying to give an opportunity that aren't experienced with Supercross.
Yeah.
And you give press day to the riders. Press day, it's really additional practice.
Yeah.
So you're giving that additional practice to the riders that are at the peak performance level in Supercross.
Yes.
Which I understand, that's fine, but I think it should be for all of them.
Yeah.
Like you've got to figure out a way.
I will defend those guys. They have been getting better, but the only reason, and I'm going to defend, and I want you to talk shit back to me, but the only reason that they even do that in general, because it's more work and it costs Supercross more money to do press day because they have to fix the track, is to sell more tickets.
Yeah.
So they essentially, in a way, have to put guys out there that are going to get interviews from us, the media people, and then morning news and shit like that to sell more tickets. Because Supercross doesn't have to do press day. But I do agree, like, yeah, that would help the other riders that don't get practice as much. But the bottom line is, like sponsorships, we got to sell tickets.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what do we do about that?
So are we more focused on selling tickets, or are we more focused on TV attendance? Because my suggestion would be that
I like the way you're looking at it.
Well, the track, one of the biggest, the reason why I'm saying that they need more practice is because the riders are going out there and they're trying to figure out the track in, a practice and 2 qualifying sessions where they may compile 15 laps total on a track.
Yeah.
I think they're, and I again, I'm assuming, but I think they're thinking of the track like motocross, where the jumps are a lot less forgiving, the obstacles aren't as frequent. And so when you go to a new motocross track, it's not as challenging to learn the obstacles. If you come up short on a double or a table at a motocross track, you can kind of bounce and you're fine, or you overshoot it. Most of them aren't throwing you up high enough that it's going to, be that bad if you overjump it.
Yeah.
But in Supercross, everything is so tight. The tolerances are so close that if we're more concerned about getting people in the seats and we want to make it safe for the riders, then why don't we reuse tracks multiple times?
There you go.
So
that
that
could
way,
be something.
That way, and I'm not saying we use the same track for the entire series, but if I'm a fan going to the track in San Diego, do I really care that it was the same track that they used in Indy? I wasn't at Indy. I didn't see it. So I understand it has to be different for the stadium layout or whatever, but and maybe it's not even the track, maybe it's just different sections. Like if I knew every time I went to race Supercross that there was going to be a double, triple, double section and it was going to be the same every time, that might be a little bit easier. I know that the obstacles are measured and all of that. And like if they're going to do a Supercross triple, typically they're within the same. Yeah. But it's everything else with it. It's not the fact, like all of them know how to jump a Supercross triple. It's everything else. It's the lead up into it, the corner. It's what's after it. That's what they've got to figure out each and every week with a handful of laps before they do it.
Yeah. I disagree with you just a little bit, and tell me what your thoughts are on this too. The hardest part for me in Supercross wasn't necessarily the jumps. It was the dirt that, like, how do I explain this? It was like the dirt and the ruts that were allowing me what to do on what jump. Because if I had every track was hard packed like Denver and they were just all, you could just drop. Every track would be super easy and you could get it done. But it's like you go to Indy and there's a rut from the top of the corner all the way out. I think, in my opinion, to make the track safer, they need to do a better job of building the track according to the dirt. Because there's certain tracks where you can make some big ass shit because the dirt's really good, But there's also some tracks like Indy and Seattle where they need to tame it way down because the dirt can't handle what, you guys are trying to give us. And I think that's one of the big things that has to be looked at is like, if we have this dirt and this amount of moisture, we got to build the track accordingly to that. You can't just build the same track every single weekend and expect it to be the same result with totally different style dirts.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Absolutely. Again, I'm not in the meetings with the track crews, but I would imagine that when they're building these tracks or the design, they're trying to consider those things. I don't know what the right answer is, but like seeing like Jerry Robin and he wasn't the first and he's not going to be the last.
Nope.
But seeing stuff like that happen, when it's the margin of error that I think is too close. And it's like, you've got the guys in the NFL that are doing something that's significantly less dangerous. And they're making more money and they're willing to risk their lives. And then to see someone like Jerry Robin, have that happen to him. And then what makes it even worse for me is that the support isn't there. So it's literally the industry that's supporting him, not, and this may be controversial, but like what has Feld done for Jerry? And I'll even add to that. So we would transport like Road to Recovery. We would transport their trailer from round to round. Well, they were asked to leave Feld this year. And and literally Road to Recovery is the only, they're the key people that are helping guys like Michael Durden that got hurt, guys like Jerry Robin that got hurt. They're the ones that are standing by these riders. So I don't know what the right answer is. There's 1,000 ways that you can do it. I just know that I hate seeing these guys get hurt. And I understand it's a balance. You've got to figure out the entertainment value, but I think right now they're doing it at too much of a cost for the riders. And I think they've got to figure that out.
And I think one of the things we mentioned on the podcast, which I think needs to be implemented, is there should be an insurance policy on any rider that gets paralyzed.
100%.
It should be like, okay, if you get paralyzed in Supercross and everybody pays, tickets, you add $5 to a ticket and that goes to it. And then maybe $5 to an entry fee. And any rider that gets paralyzed in a Supercross race gets like a $10 million payout or something. You know what I mean? And like, that can't be that hard, especially because over the years of guys that have gotten paralyzed in a Supercross race actually has been like what, 2 in about a decade almost. Yeah. It's probably more than that, but it's not much, where that could be a pretty easily implemented insurance policy. And I think that would help a lot of riders have confidence, and it would help me. I don't know if I want my son to race Supercross. And I think that would help me. Like, at least I know if my son got paralyzed racing Supercross that he would be set for life.
Yeah. I like the idea of insurance, and maybe that's something that Feld or AMA or somebody can do for the riders, where I don't want to add additional costs to the riders because the sport's expensive. We've got to figure out a way to get more people doing this.
Yeah.
But if on the pro side, if they were able to cover an insurance policy for the riders,
yes,
where if things happened, the rider was covered.
Yes. Which I know that Feld does have an insurance policy for riders that get hurt at the race. They do pay like a huge portion of your medical bill if you get hurt at the race already. That is something that Feld does do.
Yeah, liability insurance.
Yes, but they do not have any kind of paralyzation or death or anything like that I know of.
Yeah. And that's where it's different. Feld has a liability insurance because they're hosting the event. That's a requirement.
Yes, absolutely.
But they need, because I don't know how many of the riders, I would guess it's minimal.
Yeah.
Especially on the privateer side. But I would guess a lot of them don't have an actual health insurance policy.
Yeah.
And I think that could be a step that Feld could take, or AMA or whoever, to help keep these riders safe and give them peace of mind. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are making the show.
Yeah.
So if we were able to do something like that for the riders, I think that would go a long way.
I think it would too.
Yeah.
Well, Jon, that was freaking awesome, dude.
Oh, thanks.
Did you have a good time? it
was good.
Yeah. Hell yeah. I definitely learned a lot. I thought I came pretty prepared, but you definitely some cool tidbits in there for sure. I'm glad everybody got to know Stan Benson Racing a little better.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Heck yeah. I appreciate you being on the show. I appreciate you driving up to do this.
Of course.
This was so cool. When you were stoked to come up, I was like, hell yes.
Well,
I can't wait.
It's 100 degrees there and it's 60 degrees here. So
yeah, I do live in a pretty sweet spot. Yeah. It's like 60. I think the average temperature all year here is like 67.
Yeah, it's horrible.
So you can't beat it. But again, if you need something, if you need ETS fuel, Pirelli tires, where do you go?
Stan Benson Racing.
If you need something in the Bakersfield area, where do you go?
Stan Benson Racing.
If you need something trackside, where do you go?
Stan Benson Racing.
Well, and now, right?
Yeah.
You can call in and get it over the phone. We had that going the whole time.
Yep.
So if you need some parts at your house, who do you call?
Stan Benson Racing.
Easy enough, boys.
That's it.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't, subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends, tell your mom, tell everybody. We appreciate you guys coming up to us at the races and shouting out Track Talkers. We appreciate all the love in the comments too. You guys they've been absolutely amazing. The fans have been awesome. Yeah, like I said, thank you guys so much. This is season 2 of Track Talkers with Stan Benson Racing. Peace.